This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. If you haven't heard, Meghan and Harry are at it again, clogging up the news with their relentless garbage. I can't tell you how sick I am of it. You're sick of it. I think the whole entire world is sick of it. Harry's courtroom mess is the big story for today, but Meghan's wormed her way in with this pathetic distraction. But together, they're a propaganda mill that's wearing all of us thin. Let's get into the rundown. All right, let's go ahead and start with Meghan and get her over with, because I can't tell you how sick to death I am seeing this woman's face everywhere. I had to bust out Sir Candle today because I just couldn't take it anymore. But anyway, today was her podcast launch, and I literally made it about 15 minutes, and I had to shut it off because it was so bad. It literally is Archetype Season 2, and instead of Meghan talking about herself, she has her guests talk about her. So while it may come across as, oh, Meghan is staying silent, the guest is sitting there singing Meghan's praises the whole entire time. It is so, I can't describe it. It's just really bad.
When I see the way that, you've been treated in the media, which is a magnitude I'll never understand, but my heart breaks for you. I'm like, it's not fair and it's brutalizing. And so,
well, and maybe because you understand it in whatever degree, you know how to show up for me.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, listen, I honestly, I can imagine, but I can't, because what has happened to you is at such a magnitude that no one can understand. Mm. Can I share the story of where I had that revelation when I was walking through the airport in Ireland?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so I stopped through the airport in Ireland and I walked over by whatever their equivalent of like a W.H. Smith or whatever those Hudson
newsstand.
News are. Yeah. Yes. And my jaw hit the floor. You were the cover of every single magazine and newspaper in Ireland. And every single one said something different. I mean, random headline. You were the cover of every single one of those magazines, tabloids, and newspapers. And I had this moment where I was like...
And this was a couple years ago.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my... What? Like, I'm in Ireland. She's back home in California with her kids, like doing school drop off. And she's the front page of every single one of these things. What are they talking about? Like, there's no content. There's nothing to say. So, I mean, I just had this moment where I was like, wow, this is a different beast. I mean,
but it doesn't feel different, whether it's at that scale or not.
No, but I do think there is so much to be said for your ability to exist.
Yeah, I think that's enough. That was really all that I could take today, but you get the picture. The disdain is thick. It's not clever. It's just a really sad attempt for Meghan to try and find something to stay relevant. Meghan failed as an actress. She failed as a royal. She failed as a humanitarian. She failed as a feminist. Now she's here trying to be an entrepreneur, which at this point, Meghan's credibility is shot to shit. So anything that she's saying about all the hard work that she's been doing, right? Come on. It's laughable. It's laughable that this woman who claims that she's a mom and that she's there working, while she's raising 2 kids as a mom. Get over yourself, Meghan. Nobody is buying what you're selling. And then on top of it, had to throw in your little victim card and goes ahead and drops this bombshell of having the same rare medical condition that her guest had, which was this postpartum preeclampsia, all to appear relatable. And then on top of it, Meghan's pushing out hard these Girl Scout photos that are supposed to be of her, but when you look closer, you realize that, once again, she's trying to fool the masses. When you look closer, you can clearly see that they've all been photoshopped. Now, when you stare at Meghan Markle's childhood photos, stuff starts popping out. Like take, for instance, this top 2 photos. Those were recently dropped by Meghan, one on Instagram and the other one in the Daily Mail. Now, when you look at this, who holds a box of cookies like that? That's one thing. The other thing is the bottom photo that came out like 7 years ago. Like, what's going on here? Why are they standing there without their sashes? And who is the little boy standing next to Meghan? Like, what is he doing there? Now, if this was anybody other than Meghan Markle, I would be giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying, well, maybe this is two separate occasions, because the photo at the bottom where there are no boxes of cookies under that table could have very well been that day that they were taking the orders down. Now, I used to be a brownie myself, so I know this hustle all too well. Each one of us were given this blank sheet in order to go fill out and sell as many boxes of cookies as we could. And the goal was to win stuff. So if you sold 100 boxes, you got a duffel bag. If you sold 250 boxes, you got the stuffed animal seal. Now, that was always the goal for many of us Girl Scouts. We all wanted that stupid stuffed animal. Now, I don't know if this was the same on the West Coast, but on the East Coast, almost every little girl was a brownie. And if you had parents that worked like mine did, that form would go to wherever your parents worked. And it was the coworkers that would sign up and buy these boxes. I don't ever recall or remember back in the day when you didn't have inventory in stock to go sit outside a supermarket and sign people up. I see Girl Scouts today sitting outside the supermarket, but they have stock. Back in the day, that wasn't the case. Like, you had to order it on the form, and then it took like a couple weeks for the cookies to come in. You didn't have stock to sit there and sell on the fly like that. So now coming back to this new photo with Meghan standing with balloons in her hands and a whole table filled with cookies and boxes of cookies underneath, considering that this was the 80s, I'm going to say that that never happened. When we look at the other photos that Meghan decides to share with the world, you see the ridiculousness of all of these stories now. So one of the new photos that Meghan had gave to the Daily Mail to emphasize that she was this little entrepreneur was this bottom photo of her and these three other girls. But when you look at this photo and you stare at it, things just start popping out. Like, Meghan has no arms. And then, like, in the background, the artwork, you can see that this was clearly manipulated, right? To make it look like they were different photos taken at different times. But it's just a cut and paste job. Like, look at the photo with Doria. Doria is like sitting on, I don't know, both Meghan and that other child, and she has no arm. And then on top of it, Meghan has her membership pin, but she's not wearing the membership pin, which you're supposed to wear regardless as part of your uniform in the other one. It looks like this, thing was just painted on. So, when you stare at these photos, they get more and more ridiculous over time because this is all of her photos. And, when you look at the absurdities that we are witnessing with things that just don't make any kind of sense and all these lies, there has to be a reason for it. Yes, we know that Meghan wants us to be talking about her, but is it for something else? Because I'll tell you this much. Today, I was distracted not only by this, but also by Harry, that I didn't even see what was going on with the market and what's been happening here, stuff that I'm genuinely interested in. And it pisses me off that it's this shit that is so distracting that you can't see the other things that are going on. And, perhaps maybe that's the goal. Maybe these two idiots and other idiots that are out there distracting the population to hide all this dirtiness that's going on. Like, take a look at these photos of what's supposed to be Meghan. None of those photos look like the same child. I mean, come on, look at the one in the center there of this little girl wearing pink. She looks like she's Asian. You can't tell me that that's the same child that we're supposed to believe is Meghan Markle. I don't buy it for 1 second. You see, Meghan and Harry, more so Meghan and her alleged family, had been using this AI deepfake technology way before any of us, had really been talking about it and it coming to mainstream. So, it's understandable that all of us had been suckered into believing this whole farce and scam. And because Meghan and Harry had been censoring and trying to control the narrative, if there was anybody out there calling out the fakeness and, the lies, they weren't heard because they were silenced, suppressed, deplatformed, whatever. And I think that's the real sinister thing behind all of what Meghan and Harry have done so far. And they're not done. Meghan continues to keep lying, and now she's pivoting towards being this female entrepreneur. Bullshit. Meghan's so-called business is a sham. That, whatever front that may be, whatever money that they're wasting and throwing into that is all for distraction. Behind the scenes, whatever it is those two demons are doing, they are with the deep state. The good news is that it does appear that the deep state is being dismantled. How is that going to affect Harry and Meghan? It's yet to be determined. But a good indicator of why Prince Harry is so desperate to get his security back could be the possibility of what's about to come. Now, I don't know what's about to come, but there's a lot of shit happening right now that, quite frankly, these dirtbags want us all distracted. Now, I'm not going to go over what happened today in court because I want to see what happens tomorrow in the second day before I give my overall assessment. But I do see a level of manipulation that's going on here with Harry's legal counsel. But I'm going to hold off for a minute to see how tomorrow plays out. But in the meantime, I'm going to leave you with this clip that I found probably the most important out of the 5 hours that was going on today. I'm very curious to know what you are hearing and interpreting. Definitely leave those comments below.
I think that's as much as I can say. But I will come back to it, my lord. I'm not going to leave you with that rather short explanation.
I see it a bit more simply than all this. It's this afternoon you made, if I may say so, some rather closely reasoned submissions by reference to bits of evidence here and there and the judge's reasoning, but these emails seem to me to sort of say what they mean and mean what they say. They say in very simple terms, and things don't have to be complicated just because they're important, right? I mean, I hope you would accept that at least. You don't have to have 500 pages to say a very simple thing, like, for example, the safety and security of the claimant is very important. That only takes a few words. And these emails, just reading them fairly, do seem to say, and I'm reading out something that I think is not redacted, there will not be an RMB on the grounds that this is no longer required, given alternative governance arrangements being established for the claimant. So there's another solution. That's what's being said. Now, you say that's wrong based upon an interpretation of the TOR, terms of reference, that there has to be an RMB. Now, what if there doesn't have to be an RMB? Why is that reasoning so flawed?
Well, this is why we need to go back to everything I've said. I'm not going to repeat myself, but my lords have my point about
followed all that,
about clarity, logic, and convincing. When you're looking at the material, I'm asking you to look to see whether there is a clear, logical, and convincing explanation. I agree with my lord that it does not need to be 500 pages long. The brevity of the emails is not the point. It could have been succinctly stated, but the brevity is an indication of the thought that was perhaps being given to it. But what you don't see...
I mean, you're not suggesting this wasn't taken unbelievably seriously, I'm sure.
I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm suggesting that the reasoning that we see is not clear, it's not logical, it's not convincing. And the reasoning we see in the witness statement is similarly, as I will develop in close.
This is why I'm picking you up, Ms. Fatima. You state that as if it is obviously the case. But
which bits, my lord?
You state that the reason given that I read to you a moment ago is not cogent, convincing, and whatever the other word is you use, as if it's a fact. But what I'm trying to get you to explain is why you say, when they are considering the situation, I put it to you this morning as well, of a member of the royal family who's stepping back from his public duties and going to live abroad, and will come back on ad hoc occasions yet to be specified. And I'm conscious that some were specified in an email from
Yes.
the private secretary.
Yes.
But leaving those aside, why it is self-evident, or why we should take it as self-evident and hold that it was the judge was self-evidently wrong about this, that an RMB wouldn't have helped in the decision that a bespoke arrangement is a better arrangement for this person,
Well,
the protection of
yes.
this person.
Yes, and my lord, I am in some difficulty, as I hope the court will appreciate, because I cannot give you my full submissions.
Well, no,
So-
but I mean, is your full submission, but I think we do get the point. We understand what private point 1 is and private point 2. I mean, is your submission the comparison with others, or is the submission, what is it
Well,
that
the-
makes it self-evident
the-
that this was not
Yeah,
coded?
I entirely see where the court is coming from. You will recall that when I gave you my contextual points, the second, the third and fourth was the information that RAVEC gets when it does the RMB and how it's then approached that for others. So there are two parts to the answer to my Lord's question.
Right?
When I will hopefully show you what the RMB does in more detail, when I can make more candid submissions showing you, it will be my submission that there are things that the RMB does, very significant things, views that it gives that are now being done by others. Now, one has to anticipate and assume that Sir Richard knew that when he was writing these emails. He knew that in depriving the appellant of the RMB, he was going to be taking a decision which meant that this person was not going to be getting all of that analysis.
Well, there had been an RMB earlier, right?
Yes?
Yeah.
But one wasn't going to be done before the 2020 decision. So that's one part of why I say not cogent, because the chair knew, I infer, I hope reasonably,
What an RMB was.
what an RMB was and
Indeed.
what the benefit of the RMB is as compared to the something else. Now that requires me to evaluate...
I mean, this is why I'm bemused, really, because something else might easily be an RMB.
But we know it's not.
At a different time.
Of course, but we know it's not. We know it's the bespoke process. So instead of the RMB, I'm going to give you a bespoke process.
But we don't know that. At this point, we don't know that. What he's saying in these emails is governance arrangements will be established. I mean, I don't think it's confidential on a case-by-case basis. You know, that's what bespoke means. So we're setting out.
Could I just ask my lord to look at page 204 just to make sure?
I am on 204.
Just
I'm
the
looking
little
at
bit in
point 1
green. Yes, I just wanted to.
I'm looking at point 1 of the email,
Yeah.
and that's what he says is correct.
Yes.
Yes.
So, in fact, my lord has made one of my points for me, which is it wasn't even articulated what the process was going to be at that stage. So it's even worse, because it's not RMB, but here I have another crafted solution. It's RMB, but I'm going to do it as and when.
You see, this is the trouble with subjecting this kind of decision-making to this kind of very, very close scrutiny. And I'm not saying if you're right about the fact that it has to be subjected to this very, very close scrutiny, then you're right, and we will have to do it not only in this but in every other case. But the problem with it is that the decision he takes here is not as to what everything that's going to be done in the future.
No.
The decision is that there isn't any point in having an RMB now because he's changed his position and
Yes.
leaving the country, and we don't know how much we'll see of him in the future. But when we do, we'll have to take case-by-case steps.
Yes.
Now, to say that that decision has no good reason, is irrational, or anything, whatever language you want to use, is difficult, because it's sort of kicking the ball down the line a bit. And
Well,
saying,
I'm not doing that, my lord. I'm saying...
No, you're not kicking the ball down the line. But maybe this decision is only about as an interim stage.
But, well, could I analyse it in this way? That there's the what we're not going to do, and there's the what we're going to do. The what we're going to do is unclear, as at this particular time frame. Obviously, we now know what has been done, but as at 24th, 26th, 27th February...
But you're putting, if I may say so, and I don't want to put it in too colloquially, but you're putting your money on the absence of an RMB as at February 2020. And what I'm suggesting to you is that this decision is not really making any final decision about when there will be an RMB. It's just saying that the claimant is leaving the country, stepping back from royal duties, and will deal with what happens in the future in the future.
Yes, and there's a response I want to give, which I'm not able to give to that particular question, because it's confidential information.
Well, you've given me two answers, I think, actually, since I know what's in the confidential information. I don't actually...
Well, it's about the things that haven't been done.
Yes. It's about the nature of the RMB, which, as you told us, and it's about others. Is that right?
There's another part to it. I'm not trying to be...
That you can't even...
That I can't say. I can't say.
Right.
But my lord, I'm not putting all my money on it not being done at this particular point in time, because we are where we are in the point in time, and my lords have evidence, and I will take you to it about what has been done in the interim. Now, can I just...
Such a fraud.